Okay, welcome everybody to another interview here with a powerhouse leader to help you with your mastermind group, whether you're an aspiring mastermind leader, aspiring community leader, or already are one. And my name is Sebastian Cruze, 7-year mastermind leader here. And today, super pumped to have our guest here, Daniel Knight, who is going to be speaking on consistent referrals for your mastermind group. And Daniel has incredible track record with generating not only referrals, but consistent referrals to the tune of over $15 million generated for ventures and clients through referrals. And my favorite thing is his unique and fun approach to it. So I'm going to share a bit about the structure for today. But first, before I do, let's touch base with Daniel. Welcome, welcome. Great to have
Thank
you
you,
here today.
Sebastian. Appreciate you having me on here. Excited to be here today. And yeah, just always appreciate just having the space to share some of the exciting things that we've got going on and how we can benefit anybody that's listening. So thank you.
Absolutely. So Daniel is the community leader, founder of a community called Unicorn Universe that specializes in generating referrals, generating fun connections, authentic connections for business owners. And so first, let's start off, Daniel, with how did you get connected to your mission and your referrals method?
Well, there's definitely a lot that went into that. Sebastian, you specifically played a huge role in that. Some of the work that we did a couple years ago, yeah, was just very beneficial, focusing on what you really enjoy, what is really important to you, the impact that you want to create, and then focusing on what our zone of genius is. What are we really good at? What kind of things do we have that we can leverage, from skills to people and resources and the things we're working on that we're excited about, to kind of create one cohesive picture that takes a lot of time to figure out, right? And I think it's always evolving, but that work definitely helped kind of figure out that I had this business doing referrals and creating connections for people, always looking for ways to bring people together. Found a lot of joy with that. Had a ton of success in my past from creating strategic partnerships and either helping them leverage, tools and systems to create a greater product or streamline their systems or just generate more business, right? So a lot of those referrals and that success in the past came from, like I said, those partnerships, from generating additional business. So we kind of tapped into that a little bit and figured out that, really getting focused on those golden connections that can create exponential growth through consistent referrals is an area that I should really be focused on, and not just for businesses to generate revenue, but for purpose-driven business owners to create a greater impact by generating more business and impacting more lives, helping more people, having more cash to operate with and do more good, right? So that became just kind of more and more clear. And everything we're doing here now is kind of just part of a longer term vision, almost like a step of the process to unity for all. And that's gone through a handful of other people to get to there. And so it's just always focusing on it, continuously evolving and allowing yourself the space to identify what's really going on internally.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. A couple of things I want to highlight there. And the first one is the difference between transactional referrals, give me business, I'll send you business, like that type of old school approach, versus the way that you approach it, which is shared mission, vision, values,
Yep.
having fun together. So naturally getting people who enjoy spending time together and then Yeah, and they're also purpose driven as well. So then sharing each other's work with, friends and colleagues is a natural extension. So yeah, let's touch base on that because very different sides of the spectrum, transactional versus authentic, transformational, aligned. Um, yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big reason why Unicorn Universe was not working at the beginning was because it was kind of very transactional from in the regard that we would set up a partnership and they'd say, okay, great, send me all the referrals you can. And that was it. That was the interaction, right? So then we would send them some referrals here and there, but it wasn't very consistent. So, how did we create that consistency? Well, one is the touch points, right? So having a way that we can consistently be in communication with somebody it has been a very huge part of it. So creating a more consistent community, having a place where the people that you're trying to generate those referrals to are meeting for an aligned purpose is one way that we did that. And so I think that that was, definitely a good way to do that. But then additionally, it wasn't really focused on the longer term picture of things, right? You talked about values and, mission and vision. Values are kind of like the most important one of those because the other ones are important, but you don't have to have the same mission to have a similar client that can work, right? Your visions don't have to be the exact same for a similar client to work, right? But if your values are not the same, you probably shouldn't be trying to do too much of a partnership, or you're probably not going to have a whole lot of referrals for them, right? So, because if you don't align with somebody's values, why would you recommend somebody to go work with them, right?
Right.
Unless the reason you don't want to work with them is because they don't align with your values. Right. So,
Yep.
so that's kind of been a huge part of it. And where we really focus on what's, creating golden connections is what are the values that your company holds? And then who can we align based on the mission and the vision that you have that's complementary, right? Do they have strengths that complement your weaknesses? Do they have weaknesses that your strengths complement, right? So we kind of spend a good amount of time there and then figure out who a good partnership would be. That's one of the best ways to generate referrals is through a partnership, right? That's how we've done it. That's how we've helped a lot of other people do it. And the values are where it's, really important that they're aligned. So that's easily one of the most crucial parts of those consistent referrals.
Mm. Yeah, let's go deeper into this partnership concept because one thing for as you were launching this mastermind, this community, I remember us looking back at your track record, your career, and we saw this expertise of putting together partnerships to grow businesses. And it was like two businesses that, were just off doing their own thing with their own ways. And then it was like, oh, they could come together and they could collaborate, they could work together, and it just boom, allowed them both to grow. And so I remember that, and it was like, okay, expertise in these strategic partnerships that were aligned. And then it was like this passion for getting people together, having fun, making impact, um, purpose driven. And so I know that's something that everybody that finds me has that same thing where it's like they have a new passion, but then it's like sometimes it can take a little bit of discovery to find what is their expertise, their credibility that can go together. And the way I like to look at it is like peanut butter and jelly. Both are great on their own, but you put them together and it's like, bam, we got a bomb sandwich. So, I wanted to highlight that for everybody listening is expertise with the passion. You didn't throw one away and say, hey, I love doing events where people get together. It's like, okay, well, let's do that and make sure it works for their business. And that is the peanut butter and jelly that helps it grow. So yeah, let's go into the partnerships, how you approach that.
Yeah. So, it's what's interesting about partnerships is that you will likely go through multiple before one works out. And it's
Mm.
likely that one will be the one that generates 90% of the results, right? So just like just like the 80-20 rule, right? It's the 20% of what we focus on that generates 80% of the results. Same thing with partnerships, right? So that's why it's so important that the values and the mission and the vision are focused on. We have a whole golden connection strategy called the moving strategy, which is really specifically focused on making sure that, when you establish a partnership, it does work out, right? So you don't need to establish 10 for one to work, right? And why don't they work? Oftentimes it's because of values, right? Oftentimes it's because of a misalignment in the mission or the vision, right? Or a misunderstanding of what the path is going to be after it happens, right? Once the signatures happen on the dotted line, it's easy to establish a partnership, but then what happens, right? What's the kickoff, right? So you need a good process for actually initiating it. Start with a win, right? If you're establishing a partnership with somebody, before you get off of the call to finalize it, why not share a win right then and there, right? Who do you have that I can do business with today, right? Oh, you can't think of anybody. What are we doing, right? Why are we even establishing a partnership if you don't have a referral today, right? So getting that first one done is the key to getting the second one done. And the second one's 1,000 times easier than the first. And then you just ride that momentum.
Mm. Awesome. Awesome. So I'd love to hear some examples here. And before we do, I want to say a couple stats. There's a statistic that says referrals convert 3 to 5 times higher than any other marketing channel. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, webinars, ads, all these different things. I come from 14 years in the marketing space that you're doing to manufacture trust and connection. And it's like, oh, referrals, a friend of a friend, a trusted source. Like, no wonder that converts 3 to 5 times higher, which that means that you have to put 3 times less money, 3 times less time into that same area. So just so powerful, but the trick is, how do you get it consistently? Everybody knows the power of referrals. Everybody knows that it's so great to have a friend of a friend, but how to have it consistently. So yeah, can you share some examples that come to mind of these golden connection? Well, let's actually pause. Could you first define golden connection for us and then share some examples of these partnerships?
Sure. So we define a golden connection as that single connection that could change your life, whether it's in business, personally, or professionally. Whatever it is that you are actively focused on as your number one priority, who would be that connection that could help you get there faster, that could make it happen more in a more impactful way, or for longer, or with an exponentially faster growth model to it. So that's who the golden connection is, right? It's that one person that, man, if you met them, it would just be like, just, skyrocket. There's a good example in 2007. A lady by the name of Sheryl Sandberg was approached by a little company. They go by Meta now. She was working at Google, and they came to her to ask her to be their VP of operations. At that time, let's see if I can get my numbers right. I think they had just under 100 million users, and under her leadership, she helped them scale the organization to what it is today. I think she got it to where I think they're just over 2 billion users now. And the reason I say her, who is not a partnership, is because when we talk about golden connections, it's that individual. It's the one person that could create that exponential growth for your focus, right? So Facebook having their focus of growing their membership, she took them from 100 million to 2 billion users, right? So she, I would say, would be one of Mark Zuckerberg's golden connections, right? Um, so just kind of an example, and also just kind of to explain that it could be anything. The one that I like to give that's totally out of left field is a dog. At one point, my business partner, Michael Gray, was struggling because his puppy had just passed. And anytime you'd ask him who his golden connection was, he would say, it's a Chihuahua. I'm looking for a new puppy to replace my little buddy, right? I need a friend. And so he found that, and then it started to become a little more business oriented after that, right? So the golden connection's always evolving. It's based on what you need the most right now, and it's personal too. If you're not sound in your head, in your life, how can we help? And it just goes back to, very early on when we talked about, it not just being transactional, right? The same thing applies with golden connections. With everything we do, it's not designed to be transactional. We're here to create lifestyles of joy, and that includes in our personal lives, right? So, so that kind of answers it, but the short answer is it's that single connection that can change your life.
Mm. Yeah, a couple things that are standing out to me is what you just shared. It's like that lens of viewing. What's that one connection that can change your life? So powerful. And also, yeah, I love that distinction that it can be business, but it all can be outer world, inner world, you know, number two. And then the third one is that it evolves as we evolve
Right.
and as business does.
Yep.
Mm. Okay. So could you share with us perhaps, yeah, like the framework that you guide people through to identify their golden connection? Because I would have feel like there's identifying it as one thing, and then it's actually securing, aligning with that golden connection.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned the moving strategy. Identify is the I in moving, right?
Hmm.
So mission, vision, values is M. Objective. So what is your objective with your golden connection, right?
Mhm.
Is it referrals? Then who might that be? So that's the objective. Then V is the value. What is the value you can provide to that person who would be your golden connection? I is identify, and I'm just going to go through these now. Then
Yeah.
N is nurture. So how are you going to nurture the relationship once you find them? And then G is grow. You then grow. That's the result, right, of the golden connection strategy. So anyway, so I how do you
What's O?
objective? What is your objective with it, right?
Okay. So
So most
mission,
people
objective, vision, or is it values?
value.
Value. Okay.
So what is the value you can offer to your golden connection?
Nice. And then I identify, nurture, grow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
That was like an accidental acronym. I had it switched. It was MIO before, I think. And I was like writing it out one day and I was like, whoa, I have a really cool acronym right here. And we just tweak it a little bit. It's great. But anyway, so yeah, so identify. You asked, how do you identify it? We leverage the power of the mastermind. We think that it's very important that you get outside input on who this golden connection might be. It really is important to know what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? That's why the objective, mission objective is number two. That's why the objective is so important, right? Because if you don't know why you're looking for a golden connection, you're not going to know who it is that you're looking for, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so so, and also, so another way that we help with that is through our strategy session. So
Mhm.
let me back up. So in our pot of gold meetings that we do twice a month, that's what we call our masterminds. Those are where we talk about, what people are working on, what they're trying to achieve, the successes they've had with things that could help them get there in the past, and then what could help them get there now. And so that's kind of where in a group format, we're identifying golden connections together. So somebody would say, I'm trying to grow my community from, 100 members to 1,000 members. How could I get there through golden connections? Well, let's talk about that, right? It could be other community groups. It could be people who have events that let you get on their stages to speak at those events, right? It could be other, community groups that you set up partnership with, and you send referrals back and forth, right? Could be coaches and consultants working with your target market, right? So those are all great referral partners, right? Now, when we say golden connections, we take people to another level with those kind of referral partners to give them a real golden connection, which is the one that can connect them to multiple referral partners, right?
Hmm.
You got to nail down the referral partner process first before you go to the next level, right?
Right.
So we start there, and usually the people that are in our Climbing in the Top of the Rainbow program have had success with referral partners in the past. So we can kind of move quicker on that, right? So who would be working with, community leaders that would be good to align with? It could be somebody like, what's his name? Tim Wolf. Did I get that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's somebody like Tim, right, who does
Yeah.
consulting for community groups, right? That would be a great golden connection for somebody who's looking to create partnerships with community groups, right? So once we take it to that next level, personally, I feel like, okay, box checked, that's a golden connection identified, right? Now go find them.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Let's dive into this, and let's roll with that. So growing a community group, Facebook group, like I have. What would be your golden connection instincts for growing a Facebook community through referrals? And to set a little stage here, I feel like it's so much more powerful again to grow it through referrals rather than paid ads to cold traffic.
Yeah, so right. Referrals is one way, partnership is another way, right? So how fast do you want to grow it? And how quickly, and what approach do you want to take with it? So referrals, like a referral partnership, let's say you found another group whose values were similar, they have a lot of similar clients, and you want to say, hey, anytime you find somebody that needs what I do specifically,
Mhm.
send them my way, right? They are then going to continue, and you do the same, right? They're going to continue on with doing their thing. They'll find someone, they'll say, hey, you should go talk to Sebastian. So that's great. As long as you're giving them value, and this is where the transactional thing kind of can get in the way, is a lot of the time they won't send you a referral till you send them one, right? Which
Right.
is understandable. That's why we start with the win. So that's great, right? It's still,
Can I pause something right there too?
yeah,
I like that because that's a core value of mine and the people that I attract is generosity, leading with generosity, going first. And so, yeah, I like that part of the method too. It's not just like, gimme, gimme, gimme. It's like, hey, here's the vision of how we can work together. I'm going to get the ball rolling and then flow from there.
right. Yeah, and I mean, it all comes down to abundance with stuff like that, right? And these partnerships work best with abundant-minded people. Partnerships are generally not, they're generally going to fail if they are done with people who have a scarcity mindset,
Mm.
because they're worried about, you know, it being even, it being fair, it being equal. Like, who cares? Like, so, oh, you made $1 million on the referrals I sent you. I only made 100K. Like, what are you saying? You made 100K, right? Like, yeah, my model is different. I charge people 100 times more than you do, right? My margins are smaller. I netted less than you did, right? Like, who cares, right? Value that you can give to somebody is like so much more important than what you can get back. And the more you can give to somebody, the more you're going to get back anyway. So that's why value is in there, is because, what's the value you can provide? If you can provide it and you keep giving them value, they're naturally going to want to reciprocate, right? So yeah. So does that answer your question? I think
Yeah, it definitely does. So a little summary there. So identifying the goal we want to do in this case, this example, this live walkthrough, it's growing a Facebook group community. And so looking at it from a partnership level, so who's got a complementary group community audience, and then leading with generosity. So getting the ball rolling of, hey, and I think it requires clarity and precision of what do people get from one community? What do people get from another community? I like to use it as like puzzle pieces. Like, what's the puzzle piece of each? and then how can they collaborate together where it's a win-win for both communities, because the people are getting support that they needed and probably weren't getting all in one place. And so then with that clarity, it's approaching them and saying, hey, I can share I can share what you have with my people who need it when they need it. Is
Right.
it accurate?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. Because that's very much, like we're talking about a solid referral partnership, right? And earlier I said, which is great, but then there's also partnerships, more strategic partnerships, right? Strategic
Mhm.
alliances that are a bit more involved, right? So let's
Okay.
take that one step further. All right.
Okay.
You've now sent a handful of referrals, right? This is great. I would love for just everybody in my community being yours and vice versa, right? Why don't we create an offer where now everybody who signs up for my membership gets yours and yours mine, right?
Mm,
Or we can give them a deal, or we can give them something to incentivize everyone be in both of our groups. Now we go from one referral to they're 100 in mine, they're 100 in yours. We now just doubled our membership like that.
okay, let's explore this. So like levels. Level one, a friend of a friend refers. Level one referrals, still fantastic.
Mhm.
Level two communities being like, hey, we've got complementary services. Let's just make a smooth, introduction ramp for between the communities. Level two. And then sounds like level three, what you're saying is it's almost like bake in the pieces to each program. Yeah, let's dive into that because I feel like that is innovative. It's new. That's like the cutting edge right now that I don't see very often. But it just makes sense, right? Because if it can provide 360 degrees of value to the people or as much of that as possible, why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and those, to make those work, it takes a lot more thought usually.
Mhm.
Because there are, prices involved, there are, people paying things, how do you replicate that to multiple other communities like that as well, right? So you got to make sure the model you set up with one can work if you do it multiple times. So there's actually, it is much more complex. And I've personally spent a lot of time thinking about that because, unity being like the number one thing that I focus on, and have gone through experiences of being kicked out of other community groups just because I have my own, really just irks at my value of unity. It's like, that's not very united, right? How can we unite? But when these community groups look at it and they look at other groups, a lot of them will look at it as competitive, right? And be afraid that you're going to lose members because of one reason or another. So it's hard to say. There isn't a blanket statement for that because the models are going to determine how the partnership can be set up so that it's a mutual benefit. And then also, the types of members, the values, the value add that they get, what's included, what makes sense. There's a lot to that, So it's going to be specific to each partnership, right? As it should be, right? It's easy to establish the onesie twosie referrals, but if you're going to say, hey, I'm opening my community up to 100 people because I trust you, I've seen enough, I believe they're all going to be good. It's going to take a lot of extra work, and you should spend a lot of extra time there too.
Mm,
Um, you know, but if you spend, you know, 10 times as long to get 100 referrals as you do one, then no brainer, right?
yeah. Okay. So a couple things here. One thing to highlight, I feel like, is yeah, the old school mindset versus the new school mindset, the competition mindset versus the collaboration mindset. And old habits die hard, that competitive type zero sum perspective is kind of like wired into human beings, for thousands and thousands of years. So what we're moving into now is collaboration, seeing instead of a us versus them, it's like, okay, well, puzzle pieces, how can we even further focus in our zone of genius and collaborate together so that way we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to be all these things. So that's what I'm hearing what you shared is like, old school approach is, well, if you got a community, you can't be in any other communities, you know, because you're going to take members or vice versa, rather than being collaboration of being like, okay, you know, I'm part of many communities. You're like, people are part of many communities. And the way I view it is like, what is the one thing that I'm getting from this? Like,
Mhm.
what's the one thing that this community is the best at? Whether it's spiritual, therapeutic, technology, mental, emotional, psychological, whether it's like business strategy or specific pieces, it's like, what's the one thing? And that allows all of them to be collaborative, I feel like. So, yeah, do you have any examples of program collaborations, or is this kind of like cutting edge right now where it's the testing phase?
It's still pretty new. Currently, we've aligned with other community groups that are holding events, and we'll come and bring our members to their events. They'll do the same with us, but like officializing this membership with yours is something that we're still working through with those people,
Yeah.
because it is complex. How do you create a win out of something that is so similar, but is not, that could be competitive, but could be cooperative. So we try to focus on things like that, and it is, we all go through levels, right? It is kind of us leveling up to the next level of our strategic partnership strategies, right?
Right.
So have we had that win yet with it? Not yet, but are we confident that we will because we do this? Yes, and I think that the most important part of it is focusing on, one, what your purpose is. What is the purpose that you're really trying to create in this world? And two, who are you serving, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, when I get kicked out of another community group, I feel so sad for all of the other people that are in that community, because they no longer will have access to my whole network, my community, because I'm not there, right? And I'm not saying that as like an egotistical thing about myself, but as just a way to emphasize how, like, of a limited type of mentality that is, to say, oh, you're going to take members from me. You can't be in my group because I'm afraid you're going to take money from me, take members, take sales. Who are you serving by doing that?
Mhm.
Really, who are you serving, right? I'm not there trying to poach members, right? I'm there trying to serve my members, adding to my network of and my community of people, learning about other people in their network that I can introduce to the people in my community, right? Inviting my community to their community. I had my own and I was making referrals left and right. And it's, happened a couple times, but, you know, my goal is to serve my members, right? And so when I know that, and the purpose is to serve them, to create value for my community and make sure that they're taken care of, I'm not too worried about competing and somebody taking my members. I'm worried about creating more value, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's the thing. Coming from a place of abundance and focusing on who you're serving. If it is more valuable to align with other community groups for your community, and it creates more value for your community, why would you think that that's going to cost you members? Why
Mhm.
would you think that would add more members? You're adding value, right? By adding access to other communities, right? Sure, you'll probably lose some people, but you'll probably gain some people too, right? It's a scarcity mentality versus an abundant mentality. The whole thing only works when you have an abundant mentality.
Mm. Yeah, what I've really seen is that it's pretty easy to fall into scarcity mindset when we're vague with who we serve and what we have, because then it's like, oh, it's kind of like, it's so general. It's this big pot of people and help them in this way. It's like, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of competition, but when it's more precise of who's exactly the right fit and how exactly to help, then it's like, oh, well, this person's like a cousin or a brother or a sister. You know, these different communities are like part of the same family, but just a little bit different. You know, like the cousins, you don't see them every day, but you see them at family functions, still part of the same family. So that's what I've really found is like a very practical way of tapping into the abundance mindset is the precision of who it's for, who is served. And then once that's clear, it's like, oh, me and this other person or me and this other community might do the same thing through that whole specific thing. And then it's like, oh, we just do it different. We're from a different generation or we have a different sense of humor. So it's like, okay, it's how we're different. People have different preferences for each. Or there's people who just say, I want both. I want both because I like the different perspectives that each person has. So
Right.
yeah, so if you could share a bit on community collaboration, do you have any? So for somebody thinking about this, thinking of their mastermind group, their community, and they're like, okay, great. Maybe I'm not ready for the program collaborations level 3 yet, but maybe for that level 2 of finding another community where we can collaborate. Do you have any recommended steps on identifying who that collaboration community would be?
Yeah, so I would say one good thing to do would be to survey your members, right? Ask them what they need, ask them what they want, ask them what would be valuable for them, right? So that's definitely going to be one of the best starting points. Before you do that, have some ideas, right? So what would be complementary services to yours, right? Let's say you have a community of marketers and they're all focused on, marketing for, podcasts or something, or they're all, kind of specifically podcasters or whatever it might be. You could think of, other community groups that could be, beneficial to them. So it could be something completely, on the flip side, like a sales community, right? You establish a partnership with them where it's like, okay, the people who are actively in these different types of roles could be, or doing, focused on this, but in this type of industry, or, looking for help with their sales, they could be a good referral for our group, right? So it could be just complementary services, could be just an alignment of events, right? Sometimes maybe you just want to leverage each other's events. And so, my membership includes your events, yours includes my events, right? And that could be a good way to create more access for people. It could be a handful of things. It just kind of comes down to like the opportunities you have within your community to add value to your community members. Then again, going back to the moving strategy, how can you add value to theirs too, right? We can all think of thousands of people that would be great for us, right? But they're not going to be if we can't be great for them.
Mm.
So got to work both ways.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to highlight something there too, is that such a different energy in the approach. Old school approach is like, all right, I want to grow my business and who has the people that can, make the transactions to make the money. Like that's a very me focus, me. What I'm hearing, what you're saying is it's the opposite. So it's for the customers, the members. Need. What do they need? Number one. Who? Number two. So who's got that complimentary service? And then three, how? How can it be a win-win? Win. Win for the customer because they're getting what they need. Win for that community because they are getting new qualified customers, and then win for you as the collaboration referrals. So yeah, I like that. I just feel like that's so practical and down to earth. Is what do your people need?
Right. Yep. Age old question, right? What do you need? Who do you know?
Hmm.
And it applies with partnerships too. And then the one part that I see people running into a lot that is kind of an important one is, well, they're a competitor. I can't do business with my competition, right? They have the same business as I do. And so, so from that, like it might be the case, but usually there's something there. And especially if you focus on, this is where the mission comes into play. You know, if you have aligned missions, maybe there's an even deeper collaboration opportunity, right? If it's so competitive that you guys literally feel like you have the same business, who's going to lose if one of them dominates the market, right? Someone maybe, but imagine if both of you were to 1 second.
So, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to let it digest and clarify here. So, golden connection, one connection that can change your life personally, professionally, financially. And we're going with the business one right now. So, golden connection can change everything. How do we do that? Just very simply, what do the customers need? And how can the relationship support everybody?
Yeah, sorry about that. That was one of my golden connections.
The golden, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, of all the podcasts I've been on, this is the first time he's actually done one where I actually had to get up and do something about
What's your doggy's name again?
Thor. He's
Thor.
a Doberman. Yeah.
Thought I saw a flash of lightning back there.
Yeah, for real. Anyway, so I think what I was saying is on the competitive side, right? And this is important to me because like everything I do focused on unity, this competitive nature between companies that think that they need to kill each other to get ahead is such a negative thing and such a damaging thing to our world in so many different ways. And it's not just companies, it's countries. And this is really what I'm doing that's for, is to help those who think they need to compete against each other to become the biggest, the best, whatever it is, and killing each other, killing people, costing lives, whatever it is, division, right? That's what it's all for. How can we get them to align, right? What are the strengths that one has that the other one can or what are the strengths that one has that they can complement the other one's weaknesses, right? These are the ones where I think it's even more important that time and energy be spent to create that unity between two companies that are so focused on the same thing that they think they're competitors when they're actually like potentially the greatest collaboration available, right? Think about how much greater they could be if they worked together, right? Who cares? Like, so that's what what that really comes down to. Collaboration over competition, right? What is the impact that you're trying to create, right? Who are you serving? If you know the person you're trying to serve, you're both trying to serve the same person, the mission that you're on is the same mission, the values that you have are the same values. Why are you going against each other to crush the other one? What are we doing, right? Why are we not working together? I mean, what do you want out of being number one? Is it more money? Imagine how much you'll save by working together and leveraging each other's resources. Is it a bigger brand visibility? Imagine how much more impact and visibility you'll have by having another behemoth talking about your company. Is it more customers? Imagine how much more customers you'll have by having another company referring business to you, right? Like, what are we doing?
Nice. I feel like those were all limiting beliefs like balloons. And you're just like, pop, 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 pop.
That's what I'm here for. And I owe you, Sebastian, a huge thank you for helping me figure that out.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to do a summary here. And yeah, I feel like it's such a powerful takeaway. It's like, who are you serving? If the mission is to serve that customer, then serve that customer. Point blank. And if the mission is just to grow your business and do it all for you, then that's a very different focus than serving that customer. Okay. So today we've a little bit of summary here, covered a lot of ground. So Daniel shared his moving method for finding golden connections. And first off, a golden connection was defined and is defined as that one connection that can change your life. And where you're at with your business, boom, break the doors open, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and it can evolve over time. So the moving method for clicking in that golden connection: mission, object, value, identify, nurture, and grow. And how there can be different levels to the game of level one, refer a friend of a friend. Level two, graduate into community collaborations. Because if the mission is to serve the ideal client, boom, let's get the people who have that same mission. And then graduating to level three, program collaborations baked in. And keeping it very practical, very down to earth, which is finding that golden connection is just talking to your customers, talking to your members, seeing what do they need, and then arranging that win-win collaboration. So that's been what we've covered today. And the special thing is that every Friday you do a little something special for referrals. Can you share some more about that?
Yeah, so yeah, and great summary. First off, so every Friday we do a connection event. This is where our members come together and guests that we invite on to share who they're looking to connect with, who is their golden connection, right? So depending on how much time you've spent on that, could likely generate in you finding that connection, right? We generally have 35 to 50 people on the call at any time, and it goes from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And it's just a great way to not only connect with other business owners, but find opportunities to collaborate with others and support people who are looking for their golden connections. Because we spend a lot of time figuring out who those are. So the people that are in our mastermind levels, once they have that figured out, they share it on our connection event in front of, say 40 people who are then there to make introductions to people they think who could be their golden connection. So if you want to join the connection event, that's easily the best way to experience Unicorn Universe, because even though we've spent a lot of time talking about golden connections and things like that, that's just part of the magic. And so we like to say we're easier to experience than explain. And so invite you to register for a connection event by going to guest.unicornuniverse.io and join us on Friday.
Absolutely. So guest.unicornuniverse.io, and you get to attend live. So Golden Connection event, it's people who are purpose-driven, business owners. They value authenticity over transactional BS. They are there to help each other. Generosity is a core value. So yeah, and every Friday that you do these live, and there's people there who also are actively, connecting people as well. So very, very special that you do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that brings us home here. So if there are any questions, you go ahead and put them in the chat. We won't do any questions live here today, but if you have any, go ahead and put in the chat for Daniel. And if there's any parting word that you want to share or message for everybody here to close us off, put you on the spot a little bit. Is there anything you'd like to share to conclude for today?
Sure. Yeah. Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And I try to live by that day in, day out. How can we create a greater impact by working together? And anytime you feel like you're struggling with a competitor, maybe take a step back and think about how we can work together. And I think that if we all just focus on ways we can work together, support each other, support the person we're really trying to help, and create the impact we're trying to create, I think we can have a much greater world than where we're at now.
So well said. Well, there we go, everybody. That's been Consistent Referrals for your mastermind group. See you next time.